You guys, I am so beyond excited to have our next guest today. Let me just paint you a picture really quickly. I was with my mom and I was really having a down day like about a month ago. And I got an email saying, hey, uh, our next guest or the next guest you're about to hear has a book coming out, would like to come on your show. And I knew exactly who this person was. I was a fan of this person. I saw what the book was. I had already seen her talking about it. And I was like, hell yes, I want to do this. Are you kidding me? And then I pushed it even further. I was like, can you send me a book? Can I get it? Can I read the book before? And they're like, of course you can read the book. And you guys, I have read the book that we're about to talk about. And I think it is just so insanely good, but it's also so fun. And it gives you the history, I think, of the internet, something that we talk about all the time on this show. But don't get all in your head. Oh, it's about history and all this stuff. It is such a fun history. Of course, sometimes it can be dramatic, but a lot of it is just so fun. So before we even introduce her, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to go to Amazon right now or go to your local bookstore, but Amazon, because we're going to do pre-orders because those matter. The book is called Extremely Online, The Untold Story of Fame, Influence, and Power on the Internet. And it is so damn good, you guys. I have not steered you wrong in books. Trust me, you're going to want to pre-order this. So when this book does come out, and it is coming out on October 3rd, you're going to have it right at your doorstep. So you guys, she also is the technology correspondent for the Washington Post. She's been with the New York Times. I just saw her in a documentary on Max about HQ trivia. She's everywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only Taylor Lorenz.
Thank you for having me. That was such a nice intro.
I'm blown away. I mean, Taylor, I know I've read. I mean, I used to follow your Twitter feed before Twitter completely blew up. Which, congratulations on your front page story about Twitter's horrible moves recently. But I know exactly who you are, and I think after reading this book, I was just blown away. So first off, before we get into any questions, congratulations. This is a hell of a journey you take us on.
Thank you. It was so fun to write, honestly. The original draft was twice as long just
I read
because
that.
I wanted to get so much more in.
Yeah, she cut the book by half, you guys, and it's already over a 300-page book. But I was thinking about, because I know you're a reality show Housewives fan, we need a Peacock, never before seen book. We need like the added footage book version of everything
Yes.
that led the cut. What? I mean, I don't even want to say what hit the cutting room floor, but it's got to
There
be
was a
some
lot about like
great stuff.
TanaCon and some other stuff. I mean, yeah, just like moments in internet history that kind of were like crazy and fun and all the good stuff is in there. Don't worry. I didn't cut anything too
No,
much.
you guys, it really does take you on this journey, and a journey that I didn't even know how it started. And you let us know that it kind of started with blogs.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, my book is about sort of the rise of like the social media world, but through like the user side, like the fame aspect of it and like like the crazy personalities that this whole world is like birthed and kind of how people started to build audiences on the internet. So yeah, I start with bloggers, the mommy bloggers, if you guys remember them, like Heather
Oh, yeah.
Armstrong, Rebecca Wolf. Yeah. And also MySpace stars, like early MySpace
There
celebrities.
was a fact in the book that blew me away, and I slack-jawed this, was that uh, our buddy Tom, that was all our friends on MySpace, he courted Tila Tequila from Friendster because she was getting too many like takedown notices, I think, about her content on Friendster, that he said, hey, you're not going to have that problem over at MySpace, and courted Tila Tequila of all people. That's wild.
Exactly, and I would say that was a successful, like, courting. I know Tila's gone off the rails lately, but she really did
A little bit.
dominate.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
A little.
cannot endorse, current Tila, but
Current
Tila
Tila.
2003 was, like, eating the internet up. Like, she was huge on MySpace.
What I love about this book too is that this is kind of like a straight reporting. This isn't like these people are disgusting.
No.
No, you are like straight reporting. It is like this. I love this. It truly is this kind of history that I didn't know I needed to read. But I do love the fact that you're not making judgment calls on these people.
No, I think that's up to the readers to sort of, like, figure out what their own thoughts are, and, like, we
And
all
believe
have
I had my own thoughts, but it was great. Yeah.
Yeah, and also, like, it's so fun to, like, go back and just revisit these different times that we all lived through, but, like, maybe we're too young to really remember. And also things you can't really process, like, things in cultural context while they're happening. So it was just, like, going back and being like, "Wow, that moment was actually, like, really pivotal," or, like, "Grumpy Cat was, like, really important." It's kind of crazy.
You experienced these, like you said, firsthand as a young woman. What was it like then to actually put a reporter's lens on this and start digging in? Like, did it even surprise you how you viewed it now as opposed to when you actually lived through it?
Yeah, well, so I started as a blogger, like an independent blogger, and that's how I got into media. I had no background in media. So it was really fun to go back and kind of revisit those that era. I will say that like the it what made me mad is just how the especially the women were treated, like the women that were breaking a lot of these barriers and were sort of these like early multi-platform content creators, like wild personalities, like people today that would be rewarded for sort of their ability to get attention, but at the time everyone was like fame was supposed to be this something somebody bestowed on you. It wasn't something that like you were supposed to actively seek out on the
Yeah,
internet.
that was
So
almost like it was considered a I mean, you talk about Julia
yeah.
Allison
Mhm.
is an example. I wasn't even aware of her. Who is she?
Oh yeah, she was like a big influencer in like the second half of the aughts. So like 2006 to like 2009, 2010. She had a brief Bravo show called Misadvised.
Oh my
The
God!
real
Yes.
Bravo heads will remember that one. I think it was one season, but yeah, I went back and rewatched some of it actually. Yeah, Julia Allison was just like one of these first influencers. And again, like it came at a time when she couldn't capitalize on it. Like I think had she blown up a few years later, she would have been one of the people that we all remember, right? But instead I mean, she was doing affiliate marketing. She called life casting. So she would vlog her life. She got an early deal with YouTube, like the year that they launched like the partnership program. Like she was just really ahead of her time. She
And
was
now
on the
that's
cover.
considered completely normal. I mean, that
Totally.
is, and everybody is going for that. But at the time, nobody was doing head to toe shots, and nobody was doing like these were all new things. So we think of it now of like, yeah, of course people know what a selfie is, but back then she was almost looked down on for doing these
Oh, I
things.
mean, not almost. Like she was like brutalized in the media and like villainized and like no, I mean people wrote horrible things. She did get this like Wired cover story where it's just like they're sort of condescending the whole time. It's like internet fame. They called her a fame whore. They loved to
Right.
use the word in that era, which I hadn't remembered, called celebrity instead of celebrity. I guess because they didn't have the word influencer yet.
We're so smart. We're so funny.
Yeah.
How witty.
So anyway, justice to her. And you know what? She actually just got in the New York Times today, too. I saw they did a whole piece on her life in Cambridge. So I think she's having like a comeback moment. And I'm so here for it because yeah, she was a pioneer.
I mean, so, but how long does it take you to research something like this book, which does, like it says, you start with the blogs, it goes to mommy bloggers, we go into the internet stuff, you even get Musically to TikTok to all of these things. I mean,
Vine.
I mean, the now defunct Vine, I mean, it seems like this would take decades to actually report on. How do you really begin to cull all this information together?
Yeah, well, it did take me 2.5 years to write this book, so it was not an overnight process. Also, a lot of getting a lot of people to trust me, like someone like Julia, that's been so maligned by the media and these mommy bloggers that were just like eviscerated in traditional media. You know, it did take some time and meeting people in person and trying, you know, just saying like, look, I actually know about this stuff. And I mean, a lot of it I've covered myself firsthand. I started writing in 2009, as I mentioned, as a blogger. So I've covered the rise of and fall of Vine. Like I remember I was at, you know, the TanaCons or I was at, you know, early VidCons. Like I've been there for a lot of it myself. And I blew up on Tumblr myself. So, you know, I think it was, yeah, it was kind of fun to like revisit it and revisit a lot of my old stories.
What surprised you, even going through all of this and living through it the first time? What were the things that surprised you and go, that can't be true?
Oh my God, just like how stupid the Silicon Valley executives are. Like time and time again, it's just shocking because like I think especially because the content creator industry is so women focused, like fashion, beauty, lifestyle, like they were all really quick to adopt to the content creator world and like use them for marketing and stuff like that. But these Silicon Valley tech executives just time and time again were like, we hate these people. We don't want people with big audiences on our platform. Like, who are these annoying, like reality TV people? Like, they're sort of like déclassé. Like, you know, we want it to be like real celebrities, you know, and And they were so wrong because these are the people that generate engagement and drama and like keep people on these apps.
Yeah.
So
Well, the book
yeah.
tells it from that user's perspective more
Hmm.
than the Silicon Valley, which I loved. It wasn't about the corporations, and it was about the actual like user perspective. But you did make that point of saying like fashion companies and beauty companies, they noticed first that people were building these massive audiences. And what I always talk about on this show is that television itself was created to sell soap. They needed something to sell commercials. And the internet and all of this stuff is very similar. As much as it's a whole brave new world, it's this, we need to sell soap at the end of the day.
100%. And yeah, it's just so fascinating to kind of like how each platform evolved and the different talent that emerged out of all these different apps, like the going back to the first YouTubers to sort of like the mid-level YouTubers of the 2010s. I wrote about MagCon, if you guys remember MagCon.
What is MagCon?
Oh my God, it was like the Viner. It was like Cameron Dallas and Nash Greer. It was this like tour. There's an amazing Netflix documentary called Chasing Cameron that actually followed the Viners on tour. Well, I think they were in Europe. And I just love
Yeah.
it because every single episode, one of these boys cries. Like every single episode. It was this like mini reality series. And for whatever reason, these teenagers are always just like,
It's emotional
like
pursuing your internet fame. It
a
gets
hundred
emotional.
percent, and it's so realistic. So anyway, but yeah, it was really interesting to kind of like revisit different people and talk to people that have distance, like people like Julia and other people that kind of have a little bit of distance from what they went through.
Well, you talked about, I mean, the first story in the book about the mommy blogger, you use, what's her name? She has passed away, unfortunately.
Heather
Um,
Armstrong.
she was the first
Yeah.
mommy blogger in a
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
And
She was the OG.
but it was kind of these traumatic stories of like, wow, you now seen the whole breadth of the story, but then what she helped create, we're still, I mean, even the Ruby Frank story that, like these mommy bloggers, really the power behind them and what they created on the internet is really amazing.
Yeah. And most of them were really like amazing mothers and people, and they were turning to the internet and becoming bloggers not to like exploit their families or whatever it was sold as. It was because the women's media of that era was not telling a realistic version of motherhood. They didn't talk about postpartum depression. They didn't talk about, struggles to breastfeed. Like they wouldn't acknowledge any of these hard topics. And so when these women got access to the internet and started writing candidly about their lives and like not always loving their children or hating their husband or, just these taboo topics, it completely changed women's media. And like we have those women to thank. Like we have this completely different women's media landscape because what those women did. And then they were so villainized for it. Like these women were running full-time content operations, educating other women about motherhood, and they would like put a couple ads, display ads to like help, buy baby
Yeah.
formula for their kid. And people were just like, you're monetizing motherhood. It's a sacred thing. And da da da. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, meanwhile, the men were monetizing everything under the sun, and there was no backlash.
It is interesting that everything is monetization now. I mean, the internet really
Hmm.
encourages monetization, and that you made that point, like we said earlier, of that at first that was like, how dare you put yourself out there on the internet and try to profit from that? It
Yeah.
was very interesting where it is now. It's like, well, how can you not profit off the internet? And if you are on the internet, why are you not trying to profit off it?
100%. Well, because everything is like hyper capitalism now, and I think the internet has. There's a really good. My friend was talking about this other piece that this guy wrote about sort of how the internet and like the influencer economy has revived the American dream. Just that, like in the 90s and early 2000s, like a lot of people there's just not a lot of class mobility, and there was like a lot of wealth disparity. It's just harder to like move up in the world. And then we had the internet explode, and suddenly it's like anyone can make it online, and it sort of revives this notion of like, you too can be a star, you just have to post enough. And so it's just a lot. I think
Well, it's
today
like
we're
the Andy
pressured.
Warhol 15 minutes of fame is
Mhm.
that, well, now, I mean, I would love to know what Andy Warhol would think, not only about the Real Housewives, but about the internet in general. Like, could you see Andy Warhol with a TikTok account? Would he have been doing musically in its earliest iterations?
You
I'm really
probably
curious
would.
about things like this. Um,
Yeah.
so the book takes us through this entire journey, but the thing that I kept thinking about and how I view social media recently is there's a sadness that I bring to there's a sadness I bring to everything, but there's a sadness where it doesn't bring the joy that it once did. And I don't know if I'm just having an off season myself, but I think I was reading an interview with you where it was that thing of like, man, I watched a fight online the other night and somebody died, and people, instead of helping the person, just filmed a video to put up on a social media platform. And sometimes that, that whirlpool of negativity is sometimes what I'm feeling, especially, and I've said this multiple times over the last year on Twitter. Um, do you believe this is all inherently good? Like these stories
No.
actually were, I mean, a lot of these stories, it did, like, it was so wistful, it was so hopeful. And you really, you see the grind and championing like women and all of these underreported, I don't know, but lately it just feels soul sucking sometimes.
Yes, and I would say that's because of this relentless pursuit of profit. I mean, those glory days of sort of like the liberatory aspect of the internet, like the even the blog ecosystem, it wasn't defined by one, these specific sort of algorithmically driven platforms where you have to monetize and like commodify every single moment that you see in the world around you in your life, right? Like that's what people have to do online now because we live in this hyper competitive attention economy that pressures us all to commodify those things in our lives. And I think that's really toxic and unhealthy. And I think the current social media landscape is really bad. The ending of my book, I sort of like call on people to build better platforms. I would love to see less profit driven social media, but I don't know. I mean, everything in America is so individualistic, so profit driven. It's like, I
Yeah,
don't
I
have
heard
a ton of hope. Yeah.
I heard my 16-year-old nephew was talking about the algorithm the other day. I'm like, you're 16. Why? I didn't even know the word algorithm when I was your age. I know this, like I'm the old fuddy duddy, but I'm like, you're talking about an algorithm. Let me complain about being shadow banned. You should, but like they don't even watch movies anymore because they don't have the attention span. They're like, I just watch it on YouTube or watch it. But like even Olivia Rodrigo today did an interview where she said, Sopranos, sometimes there's like an hour and 20-minute episode, and I can't put that kind of time in. And I was like, no.
I know. I feel it too. I mean, it's hard. It's hard out there, but I do think that like we're in this weird transition phase. I mean, my book is about sort of the first 20 years of the social web, whatever, basically like the rise of social media. And when you think of that in the context of history, like it's still so new. And really the like algorithmic driven platform stuff, that really only started to happen in 2015, sort of in 2010s really is when they started, all these platforms added algorithmic feeds. So I think I think people are starting to realize it's bad. And I'm hoping that we can like, with these acknowledgement, build better systems. But
The
it will
book,
probably go the worst way possible,
yeah,
just to
so
be clear.
sorry to make you guys all bummed out. Let's talk about some fun stuff. The book does talk about YouTube. And one of the first videos that really popped on YouTube was Lazy Sunday, Chris Parnell and Andy Samberg from Saturday Night Live, which I remember. And they didn't even really even know what YouTube was. And it was blowing up on YouTube.
Yeah, it was created as a digital short for SNL, which was these like short sort of videos that would go in between the live sketches. And people immediately started uploading clips to YouTube and it went mega viral, like especially in those
Yeah.
early days, which is really impressive because there wasn't really any native social sharing. It was people like copying links and like emailing the link to each other. And so, yeah, this video blew up and I think really changed what people sort of thought YouTube could be for. And a lot more people started producing parody music videos for YouTube. And yeah, it really exploded.
Who do you think is responsible for internet stars? Is it YouTube? Is it like, because you do a lot of stories. You talk about the Paul brothers. You talk about
Mhm.
like the Tay Zondes with chocolate rain. You talk about all these kind of internet fads. What is the first social media that started really making stars?
I mean, I would say MySpace. I mean, UTA started their digital department in large part to do MySpace deals for MySpace TV and work with MySpace talent. So I think MySpace and blogs. I mean, if you think about too, like it just online fame, mommy bloggers were the first to build brands on the internet, like personal brands, and then like commodify their personal brands. Like that is from the blog world. That is from MySpace. Of course, it ended up being YouTube. I talk about Vine. There's 2 chapters on Vine in my book, and sort of like musically live streaming. Tumblr also, like Tumblr did so much for, um, you know,
People still talk so romantically about Tumblr, like their Tumblr
yeah.
days. It's like my Tumblr days, and they always say it with such a smile on their face.
Yeah. I feel that way too because again, I came from Tumblr, so like I will always be like loyal to that platform. It gave me everything. But I couldn't, like Tumblr allowed for the sort of like anonymous social media interest based stuff to really take off. So you started to see, I talk about the fuck yeah era of Tumblr of like, fuck yeah sharks, fuck yeah raspberries, fuck yeah whatever, like, and it was this way to like, and a lot of those people were doing early brand deals like related to their interest area. Like if you had a like fuck yeah bikes or fuck yeah mountain bikes, a mountain bike company might reach out and give you a free one. So I think like all of these things blended together. I think people think of YouTube as what started it, and that's not true. I mean, YouTube was actually quite late to the game.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
then they were even quite late in terms of monetization, in terms of like people then complaining that they weren't actually getting monetized. By the way, that's my favorite thing still to this day is YouTubers complaining about being demonetized. That's one of my
yeah.
favorite. In fact, this week we got Russell Brand got demonetized. Demonetized is another really fun buzzword in terms of YouTube. But
Oh, 100%.
in terms of now, what social media app is doing it? I don't want to say correctly because I don't think anyone is, but is there one that's like, okay, there's something here still?
Yeah, I mean, I would say YouTube is the gold standard. Like YouTube did pioneer sort of monetization for content creators before any other platform really figured it out, aside from like Google blog, ads on blogs. So I do think that they still like it's the most sustainable platform for revenue generation, but it's really hard to grow. It's almost impossible to grow on YouTube organically. And so that's why you see people turn to apps like TikTok, which provides just a level of audience growth and discovery that no other social platform provides. And then of course you've got Instagram and they're cloning everyone's features and like, Instagram's not going away anytime soon. So
I
I
mean,
think
no, I'm
those
sad if
three.
it would because it's the only one that I kind of know how to use. Like I have to post a couple silly, stupid memes and then it lets me promote my podcast a little bit. Like that's so, but it is one of those things where I also don't get like verbally threatened as much as I do on Twitter. And you actually believe in Thread. I mean, you're one of the only
I'm
people pushing
trying.
Threads. I tell this to the audience though, it's the only place where I don't feel completely negative. And yeah, it might be a little more boring and definitely does not have the information that Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it does, but at least I'm not scared for my life after I'm on it for a while.
Yeah, the issue with Threads is that they block too much. Like they started blocking all these newsworthy terms recently.
Yeah, like
I wrote a
COVID and
story
things like
about
that.
that. Yeah, and like the names of chronic diseases and like they're just like blocking anything that they consider to be quote unquote controversial, and that is crazy and horrible and like so I'm not to sound like
Yeah.
a crazy person, but like that's like way over the top censorship type of stuff. Like I think people want free expression. They want a space to be funny and express themselves and talk about difficult topics. We just don't need the death threats. Like Twitter's like too far the other way.
It's so simple. Like I just don't want death threats. And then you'll get a video about, I was watching this video last week of Sophia Franklin, the podcaster, these two dudes like talking to her about like, hey, you're like in your 30s, you're bare, like, yeah, I need 2 million to date you. Are you kidding me? And I was like, oh, and then Sophia Franklin came back and actually, I thought destroyed these guys. And then you see the comments underneath it. These other just guys are saying the worst things in the world. And I'm like, that's encouraged. And that scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, Twitter sucks. I don't use Twitter at all anymore. I only use it to keep up with like COVID information because I'm really high risk. So I like
Yeah.
keep on top of it. But like I literally don't use it for news ever because I can't even like find news on there. Like I don't even know what's going on there. It's just like people screaming at each other about politics all the time. And
And
it's
then I find
toxic.
myself screaming about it. And then I'm like, why am I invested in this at all? In researching this book and talking to all of these people, did you ever get starstruck in a sense since you lived through this?
Yeah, it was really cool to get to talk to like people that I had admired for a long time. There's just like, I mean, I don't know. I was just actually last night talking to Ben Rellis, who made the Obama Girl video, if you remember
Yeah.
that. Like, there's just all these people that made sort of pieces of culture that really shaped our pop culture history. And like, it's just cool to get to like talk to them and hear kind of like why they did what they did made or, I just love talking to creative people. So yeah, I didn't really get starstruck in the sense that like, I mean, it's not like I was, interviewing someone that I would never have access to. But it was a lot of like cool people that I was like, oh my God, I've been like longtime fan.
Yeah, no. Can you explain to the audience if they don't remember? I'm sure you guys already remember this, but you talk about Lonely Girl 15.
Yeah,
What was Lonely Girl 15?
My God, Lonely Girl 15 was this like early YouTube phenomenon. It was by this group of four people, including Amanda Goodfried and Greg Goodfried, who now runs the D'Amelio Family Enterprises. It's very funny.
The Enterprises.
Yeah, he's like runs their brand. But anyway, it was this like fake, it was a fake like reality show on YouTube about this girl's life. So she was like pretending to vlog, and and then the vlogs got sort of progressively creepier and weirder and more mysterious. And it turns out it was all this like scripted show basically. That these people were these like Hollywood or like they were kind of like Hollywood outsiders, I guess, were behind it.
They wanted to be filmmakers.
Yes. And you know what's so funny is when they were casting the like best friend, the guy best friend of the girl, who's the main character of the show, they specifically said they couldn't cast an attractive young boy because it wouldn't be believable that any sort of good-looking young man would be spending time on YouTube, because it was like considered to be for nerds and like weirdos. And I just think that's so funny because now it's like you have to be like, you know, everyone online that succeeds is like attractive. Yeah.
But it was found out as this kind of thing that it was actually not real. But I loved that thing where it was this tool where you actually could do things. You could create your own content. At its best, that is something that the internet has to offer, from mommy bloggers to YouTubers and things, that you can actually put your perspective out there.
Yeah. And the book, like, I would say that those years too are like maybe the first third of the book. A huge portion of the book is like Vine era and like mid 2015s, like the dress I talk about, like, and the role of BuzzFeed.
The dress
like,
of the color of the dress, correct?
Yes. Like the dress, like, was it blue or black or white and gold? And also just the role that like sites like BuzzFeed specifically played in sort of like the viral ecosystem and like,
yeah, because you say BuzzFeed was the one actually presenting this information, is that it wasn't actually being found organically. It was places you would find it like BuzzFeedless.
Yeah, there needed to be this like all those digital media companies were this like bridge to the internet, because people weren't consuming directly like content directly on the internet yet. Like these days, if the dress or whatever, like the post itself would go viral, but back in 2015, 2014, like you needed this like intermediary to just like aggregate the internet for you basically. And
the Huffington Post of the internet. Yeah, no, it is one of those things that you would see these names pop up, or I'd read it and I'd be like, oh my God, yes. You do talk about the Paul brothers. You talk about Hype House. You've covered Hype House before. Will you explain to the audience what the Hype House was?
Yeah, the Hype House was, well, I guess it's still around in a different iteration, but it's, I write a lot in the book, well, about, not a lot, I guess, but I talk in the book about collab houses, and the first content house in 2009 called The Station, and then the O2L house, and then, the FaZe Clan.
Were these like boy bands? Like the new generation of boy bands were like houses?
Yeah, I mean, they're basically like collaborative groups of like influencers, content creators that live together and create content. And I think this really exploded during the early days of the pandemic. The Hype House launched over the holidays 2019 to 2020, sort of that right around New Year's. And
that was only in 2019?
Yeah, I flew Christmas Day. It was like Christmas Day or maybe the day right after Christmas. I flew to LA to do the first story on the Hype House.
They hadn't even approved you yet, had they?
No, they didn't want me to come, and I lied and I said I was already in LA.
You're like, this is my Watergate.
I was like, I'm coming. I like to be first on things, like every journalist. And anyway, but it just, I talk about sort of like that era of TikTok, and also just the role that those houses and the controversy and drama that they sort of created on the internet. It was like a TikTok reality show, for a while, especially during like lockdown era. And so, it really drove interest in TikTok.
I mean, guys, if you're in Los Angeles going down Sunset Boulevard now, you have Dobrik's Pizza, which is David Dobrik from the Vlog Squad, or, he started the Vlog Squad. And then you have the TikTok bar. It used to be just a bar that when everybody came to LA in their, late teens, early 20s, you would go drink at. But now it's like TikTok famous.
Saddle
Ranch, yes, which we've seen in many reality shows as well with the bull. But now I just realized from like younger people that listen go, oh, that's TikTok famous. I'm like, oh, is it? I puked there in my 20s before it was TikTok famous.
I feel like that about New York. There's all these New York City TikTokers. They're like, this undiscovered gem. And I'm like, that old place?
I'm so tired of TikToks, this undiscovered gem. It's like, nobody eats a meal for a meal anymore. It's got to be content. So you cover the Hype House, all of these houses, and the Paul brothers always fascinate me because they all obviously are so loud. And I just finished watching that Jake Paul documentary on Netflix, and it's wild that he is, pivoted to being a boxer. But they also, there's a fascinating story that I had forgotten about Logan Paul, where he had got canceled for filming dead bodies in one of Japanese's what is it, suicide forest?
Yes, exactly. So that was the end of 2017. And it was this year I talk about in the book of the adpocalypse. It was basically the year that like media started to pay attention to the YouTube world, and they were like, wait, what is all this stuff? Because it was also sort of peak prank era of YouTube. So you had like just people being absolutely ridiculous and pulling horrible stunts and terrorizing people. And yeah, Logan Paul flew to Japan and filmed, unfortunately, a dead body, and then uploaded it, and kind of it was became this huge controversy online.
And then he got canceled. But it's once again is that it's these people like barnacles, they just don't stop. And now people
Well,
actually sometimes forget that's part of his story.
yeah, I will give Logan Paul credit because I do think he's like matured, and he's talked about like he's apologized and kind of like talked about
Yeah.
his poor judgment. And like I also like he built himself a podcast that's really successful. And like, he said a lot of great stuff. Like he supported the Black Lives Matter movement in 2020. And like he's unlike his brother who has gone sort of full, like, I don't know what
Did
Jake
you
is on
watch the
right now, but
documentary? Did you
no, I
watch?
haven't watched it yet, but
Oh
I
my
trust me, I know
goodness.
everything there is to know about Jake Paul.
You
And
gotta
like,
watch it. I mean, because
yeah,
even the relationship between Logan and Jake, they
yeah,
remind you of like when they were against each other. And I was like, it
yeah.
truly is a reality show.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that whole family. I don't know if you remember Vlog Dad Greg Paul, their father. um, yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. It's also interesting just like how a lot of these content creators have engaged with the sports world and the overlap between
Yeah.
those two.
It is. I mean, it's another thing. It's another revenue stream.
Hmm.
You also talk about OnlyFans making $3 billion or something like that since its launch. They don't actually release actual numbers and how many of their content people are millionaires. But that's another thing that I didn't think about in terms of the internet and people actually profiting off the internet now. TikTok is our number one app in terms of social media. Is that correct?
Yes. I mean, I think TikTok is sort of just like the app right now that drives culture the most. Like it's the most popular. It's what's ascendant. I mean, the product is light years ahead of anything that Instagram or YouTube have created. And it's where things happen. It's like, if we're watching for like even like the war in Ukraine or like the Maui fires, it's like you're going on TikTok and you're looking for those firsthand accounts or like analysis videos. And I just think it's like where people are these days.
How comfortable are you in putting your face out there as a reporter of this news? Because you're a master of the written word, but now you're out there. I was watching you as a talking head on that HQ documentary. You're making your own content and things like that. How is that comfortable for you?
Yeah, I mean, I had a Snapchat show in 2016, and I launched another Snapchat show before that. Like I hosted Facebook Live shows. Like I do tons of TV, and I had a podcast at one point. So like I'm very comfortable. I don't. It's weird that I'm even a writer because it's not writing is sort of a means to an end. It's like how I can tell a story, and it's generally as a reporter you have to expect it to write articles, but I'm not like one of those people that's married to the written word. I think it's just one way to tell a story, and I try to like, especially if I have a big story, I put it out in lots of different formats because some people they'll never read a full article. You've got to do the TikTok breakdown video for them, and then some people really like the long read. Like some people will
No,
like
it
read
was
that.
really I was romanticizing reading this book. Like I had like a beer and a burger finishing this book last week at like Corner Bistro, and I was like, look at me, maybe somebody's gonna see me reading a book. Like I was so excited to be reading a book at a dinner that I was like, look at me. But it's so funny because I'm just used to like, if I do that, I'm usually on my phone looking at TikTok, Instagram, or something like that. So I was like, how funny is it that I'm romanticizing the written word when that's what I grew up with, was just reading?
It's so funny. I know. I will say the highest praise that I think any author can get is that your book is a quick read because it means that people just sort of lost time,
Burn
right?
through
Like
it.
they just went into it and burned through it. And so I tried to keep my book, like I did keep the chapters very short. I don't know if you noticed that, but I like tried to break the chapters up a lot and just try to keep it moving so that people didn't get like because everyone's attention spans are so destroyed. I'm like, all right, you got to keep people hooked.
And the notes section is huge. I mean,
Yeah.
the note section is wild. I do want to say, like in the very beginning, like I said, you brought up Tinsley Mortimer, which we all, of
Yes.
course, legend from Real Housewives of New York, and
Mhm.
of course, the little scene show High Society, which you've seen all of the episodes. I mean, just truly a star. But you pointed out one of the first blogs she was a part of, not in the sense of creating it, but she was talked about. What was that first blog?
Yeah, so it was called Socialite Rank, and I opened I opened the book with the story of Socialite Rank because Socialite Rank, I think, ended up just being this metaphor for how the entire internet turned out. It was a blog that emerged in the mid aughts that just started ranking and like documenting New York City socialites, and everyone was just like, where did this come from? Because these socialites suddenly started to be like, what is this? Like, why am I ranked number 3? Like, I want to be ranked number 1 or whatever. Um, and everyone just assumed that it was another socialite. Like 100% people thought it was this guy, Peter Davis, or Tinsley herself. And it wasn't. It was these two complete randoms that were
Yeah.
basically doing it as like a social experiment. These Russian immigrants, and I think they were living on Staten Island or somewhere at
But
some
isn't that
point. But
hysterical that everybody was like, who are these people? They are so inside, and people were really taking this seriously. It meant something.
yeah, and also, I mean, this was the era too when party photos were being put on the internet for the first time. And so people were like a lot of their like party coverage, they were just going on Patrick McMullen and then writing about the party. But like people were like, how do they know all of this? And it's like it's literally on the internet now, you know? But at the time it was just so shocking. And there's a fantastic New York Magazine cover story called Number One Girl that was about the big reveal of when it was revealed that it was these two, Russians. And I just like that. I remember reading that story when I was young and being like, wait, this is crazy. I think the internet's going to change everything. And it really did. And I think the whole world is socialite rank now. Like we're all sort of cognizant of our status. We're all ranked by these online metrics. So much is about our personal brand and performing online. And like, it just seemed very like relevant. And
I
I
mean,
thought
they even pit Tinsley against what's her name from
Olivia
the
Palermo, who was on the
Olivia.
city.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
pitted like they started this like they pitted these two women against each other, and it was just two strangers, and
Oh,
I was
totally.
blown away by
And they
that.
didn't actually have beef, really. Like they were just
No,
like,
no.
"What is this?" Like Olivia was like younger and was just like, "I don't know." I mean, it's just funny. And Olivia ended up being a huge influencer. And I also think it's funny how like reality TV, like that era of reality TV, and I talk a little bit about it in the book, also changed people's notions of fame in the aughts. Like you had the internet, like people bubbling up on the internet, and then you had sort of TV fame and what that meant sort of coming down almost with the rise of reality TV. So it was all like intermingling. And
Well, thank you for bringing reality TV up even more because I do know you are a fan of reality television.
yes.
And I just have to ask a couple of questions, if I may. I know you are a big reporter with an amazing book out, but you do what reality shows do you still watch?
Oh God. I mean everything. I'm a Bravo person and I've seen obviously,
So you have taste.
all the housewives, but I'm also into the Netflix reality show. I mean Selling Sunset,
Did you
like
watch the new? Are you watching Selling the
of
OC?
course. Yes, I just started the OC. I mean I watched last season and I just started this
It's
most recent
hysterical.
season.
It's
Yeah.
hysterical. And it's like
Yeah.
that Adam DeVello, the Hills guy, produces that show and he hits you so hard with lights and music where it's like the thinnest storyline ever. It's sliced
Yes.
so thin, but you're like, I think I'm watching Citizen Kane because it's so overpowering. It's so internet.
I love it. I love it. I'll eat it up. I love a real estate show. I loved Million Dollar Listing and all those too. And obviously Vanderpump Rules. That
Can I
is
get,
my
are you allowed
one
to
and
tell
only.
us? Are you allowed to tell us your thoughts on Scandival? Where
Oh,
do you stand?
100%. First of all, I'm Team Ariana, obviously.
Wouldn't it be
Um,
amazing if you ruined it all right? You're like, Ariana deserved it. I'm Team Scandival. I'm Team Sandoval, and I love his band.
um, Let me tell you, last night I had a book event last night, and I was with Dave Holmes,
I
iconic.
love Dave Holmes. He's been on
He's
the show.
awesome.
So cool.
A huge reality fan as well. And my other friend Lindsay, who's an editor, she was an editor at the New York Times and then now at the Post with me. And she was defending, she was saying they were too hard on Raquel during the Rachel at the reunion and sort of defending Rachel. And I was literally getting so triggered. I was like, they were not hard enough on her. Do you know, like, if I was in that situation, I would have been going ballistic. And I'm
Well,
sympathetic, but like, I thought it was completely appropriate.
I'm
It had been
sympathetic, and
weeks.
of course, Tom is the ultimate bad guy.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I will say, it's like we did it to ourselves, expecting Rachel to come with anything. Like she never, it was the storyline. It wasn't her. She was never going to be able to step into a villain role because of the sense she's so confused about who she is to begin with. So when she stepped on to those reunions, it was almost doing herself a disservice. And that's why I was almost kind of like proud of her that she didn't do this season, because it
Yeah.
would have been more disappointment for the fans, because she would have never been able to clearly communicate why she did this, how lost she is, which is, by the way, very relatable for a lot of us. But
Yes.
she would never, it would have just made her look even worse. So I kind of thought, good for you not doing this season.
I totally agree. I'm also glad that she's not doing it just for her own health. And I do actually have sympathy for her. I just think that like when that reunion was filmed, it was like weeks after it happened. And if I had been in Ariana's position, I would have gone ballistic on both of them. Ultimately, Tom is the bad guy in this situation. Like, I mean, Tom, this is just, I rewatched when all of it was happening, like many people, season 3 with Miami Girl. Like, I was like, let me go back because they like, I just wanted
Can I beg you to write Bravo's history? The internet's history, go back for Bravo's history, because I would love your takes on Miami Girl right now.
Oh my God. It's just so crazy because like, I mean, now Ariana's like, yeah, I knew and whatever. But like, they just like he's just such a gaslighter and was gaslighting everyone. And Jax is so problematic and so many, I can't believe I'm saying like team Jax on anything, but like, I don't know. You kind of like, Andy's right that like they all have cheated over the years. No one is without sin, I guess, other than like Katie. But I don't know. I thought it was so awful. I mean, so
Tom
awful.
did it. Tom brought Jax and all these other goofballs back into the mix. Tom did that single-handedly, and they're all, by the way, yeah, I guess they all do owe Sandoval a thank you, but it's like the weirdest thank you ever, because I mean, talking about the internet, reality stars are like TikTok stars and YouTube stars in a certain way, because like you just said with Miami Girl and things, is that Ariana knew is that he's very careful of like wanting to hold on to this fame, of wanting to like, okay, how can I monopolize this? Or even when Dodie was on my show, or he was talking about Dodie on my show a while back before all this happened, and he said him and Dodie had broken up, but they had to go on Watch What Happens Live, and they didn't. They decided not to say anything and act like they were still together because they knew the optics would be bad for the show. And if you're thinking that far down the line, I mean, I was sitting here thinking he was the best guy in the world.
I was calculating.
Yeah, but Taylor, I thought like, I do a weird job. I'm a podcast. I do this weird job. He's a weird guy doing his band. I just thought he was a different guy than he turned out to be. And of course, all this proof is out there now, but I just didn't view any of it.
I just don't like it at all. Yeah, I don't. I think that it shows a level of calculation, and it totally makes me believe how Rachel, like, especially when he kicks, like during the reunion, when they're in Rachel's trailer, and he's like has that like conniption fit, and like,
I'm not filming, dude. I'm not filming right now. Leave me alone. Yeah.
It just shows like he's just so obsessed with like his image and like being presenting in a certain way, and it just like, I don't know, it grinds my gears. I don't like a cheater.
Wasn't it fascinating? I mean, wouldn't it be amazing if people were like, I do like cheaters. They're actually they're a lot of fun. But we watch this, and then the guy, in terms of just calculation, he still goes on a tour with his band and leans into this, and it was almost this, not gaslighting, but this thing of like, should we be happy for him? Like but once again, he was doing that because he wanted his own image out there. He wasn't doing it to be like a noble act. Nobody was asking his band to go out there.
No. And the stuff he said about Ariana, it just bothered me. I feel like any woman, or actually any person that's like been with a gaslighter, like you're just like listening to him be like, no, Ariana and I, like, we really like weren't together for months, or like it was on the down.
It's the classic thing that guys tell girls to be like, no, you can sleep with me. It's pretty much done. It's pretty much over. She doesn't stock pins and batteries.
Yeah, I know. It's so crazy to me, but it is so fascinating. I do think it, like, I mean, everyone was saying like this was supposed to be the last season, and I think that like awkward kind of almost last episode was supposed to be the finale, and then like things got crazy. So I think it's like, it's amazing as a viewer. Like the drama has kept us all hooked. I'm definitely going to watch next season.
Yeah. Do you have high hopes for next season? Because it's one of those things where I feel like this is Haley's comment. It only comes by every once in a while. We had written off this show, even though I was going to watch every episode for the end of time, but season 8 and 9, not that great. And then 10 comes around and it reinvigorates the whole franchise, where people started watching it for the first time from the beginning. You went back and watched season 3.
I know, I rewatched it, and I probably rewatched it like 4 times, like, if not more, like, over the course of my life. I've seen every episode multiple times. But, yeah, I mean, look, it's never gonna live up to, like, this past season because it was so crazy, but I do think I really wanna see the fallout, and I really wanna see, like, how this group, like, navigates things, and, there's just changes in everyone's lives, and I'm excited to I mean, I'm still gonna watch, and we'll
But
see
in
what
terms of
happens.
the internet and your book, Extremely Online, what I find fascinating and I hope they lean into is all of a sudden, after two kind of subpar seasons where they're not getting the kind of brand deals they once were, they're all getting brand deals. And I was like, how
Mhm.
fascinating would it be if you have Sheena mad at Lala because they were up for the brand deal and only one got the brand deal? I want that kind of fourth wall to break and realize what we had, what this show became was trying to get more Instagram followers, trying to get the same brand deals, trying to release a single. I mean, listen, Bethany Frankel or Frankel, however you want to call her,
Yeah.
did that interview with Rachel, and then immediately that day, Sheena released a single. It was like, I'm gonna hop on this, I'm gonna hop on this wave. They all now are these kind of media assassins.
Yeah, and I think that's actually just reality TV generally. Like, I mean, actually, Nick Vile was talking about this on his podcast recently about like how he felt like he was saying like he felt like he was on The Bachelor during like the best possible time because the networks hadn't totally sort of inserted themselves into the like ecosystem. So like you were still getting tons of followers, but you didn't have all these like clauses like Bethany talks about where it's like they own part of any business that you launch now or whatever,
Did you know
whatever.
Bethany created reality shows? Did you know she is the creator of reality shows? No, I mean,
I know
you're
she
right though. Like,
loves it.
I
Yeah.
mean, there
It
was a
was
time when it
there
was
was
different.
like there was a time I think when it was like you were still like I would say 2016 to 2019 actually was like the best time to be on reality TV. I think now it's so competitive and also the brand deals are so crazy and everyone expects like it happens. We're all waiting for Ariana's first brand deal when all this happens. Like we know it's coming.
Yeah.
And so I think like it's just gotten a little bit more like chaotic. But I mean, reality TV has always been a springboard for internet fame, and internet fame has also always been sort of like a way to get into reality TV. So the two have a very symbiotic relationship.
A fun fact I always love is that the premiere of Twitter was the same night of the premiere of Real Housewives of Orange County season 1, episode 1.
Wait, no way, really?
Isn't that insane?
That's
It's the
hilarious.
same night. And, but it didn't take off the way that we all now go on there and badmouth like whatever reality show is on that night. Like last night, Meredith Marks or Heather Gay peeing herself and throwing up in a Sprinter van. Everybody immediately goes on Twitter. But back then, it just wasn't that. So you got this more pure form. It almost, you go back and watch these reality shows, they almost play as documentaries now more than the Michael Bay spectacle that it's turned into.
Yeah, I tried to get a job with Kelly Cutrone because I watched Kel on Earth. And I was just like, I want to be part of this, like People's Revolution, like I'm going to work there. And yeah, but it's so funny because I was rewatching it recently for something else, another story I was working on, and I was like trying to find something out. And it's just, it's so actually not like, they are almost not aware of the internet in that show. Like it was such a different time and we didn't have social media the way that we do now where everyone's sort of plugging their things and it's this like subtext
Yeah.
almost throughout the show. So yeah, it feels more like documentary, like true, like a documentary almost.
Which, by the way, the internet does create all these stars, even now scammers and things like that. You were actually interviewed on Anna Delvey's podcast
Yeah.
recently, which I was like, how bizarre that must be for so many, because I just look at this as a story or the Netflix show. And then I was like, wow, like she's interviewing you and you report on, like I just found that so
Yeah.
like almost Inception in a way.
I know it was crazy. I wish she invited me over to her apartment to record, and I couldn't. I'm in LA, and I wasn't
Could
gonna
you
like fly all the way
imagine
there.
winding
But
up at Anna because she has to wear the braces. She has to stay in the apartment,
yeah, well,
right?
her and Kelly Cutrone
I,
had some like party on her
I,
rooftop. I was like, all right, where's my invite? I want to come
what
next
is
time.
going on? What can you hope with this book coming out? Which, by the way, like I said, I know pre-orders matter. We got a week to pre-order this thing to make this really, really count. Because I think you are going to want this on your shelf. This is the perfect conversation piece. And as we head into holiday season, I'm telling you, moms, get this for your daughters. Daughters, get this for your moms. Everybody needs this book on their bookshelf, their coffee table. I'm telling you, it will spur conversations. But what What are you hoping for with this?
Yeah, it also like I think it's been so fun to see the content that people have been making like out of this book. Like a bunch of TikTokers have just been like pulling things out and being like, "Whoa, did you know like this crazy moment happened in like 2012?" Or like there was this whole like family of Instagrammers that have all the big Instagram accounts in like 2013 and they were called the first family of Instagram and one of them like there's just like all these like funny things in it that I think make for good conversation and like pop culture history.
No, I mean, this is barely scratching the surface of anything. That's why you do need the book. And also just buy the book so she'll come on later and just talk about Vanderpump Rules when the new season comes out. That's what we need. But in terms of promoting this, I'm sure you are completely exhausted. Just let people know though, I was watching that party last night and Kathy Griffin, I mean, I've seen you. She's been doing these salons. Like my friend Meredith Lynch was there, and my friend, all these people are getting together. What is that like to have somebody like Kathy Griffin, who I think is just a historical figure in pop culture, sit there and say these amazing things about you and your work?
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, I'm always so honored. It's like, I think as a journalist, you sometimes get that where you have these random sort of people come out of the woodwork that appreciate your work. And sometimes they're celebrities and that's so cool. And yeah, I mean, I watched my life on the D list.
I
So
know.
it was cool that she decided to say that stuff about me and so random. I was like, okay, thank you. What?
Um, is there one reality star that you would like to read the book that you're like, you know what? I wish Ariana would read this.
I mean, yeah, I have my favorites. I don't
Who
know
are your
why
favorites?
Vicky Gumbelson came into my head,
Could
but
you imagine Vicky reading this book?
I want Vicky to have a little book club with this book. I want her, Teresa Judas. I want like all like my favorites from just random people over the years. I love, you know what? I love the OG Housewives. Like I love the like the early seasons of New York. Remember the
Yeah, Mount
Alex
Rushmore.
McCord,
Oh my
um,
God. The Alex McCord and her husband,
Simon.
Simon. I mean, guys, you missed go listen to Simon's single, I Am Real. You can find it on YouTube. There's a cover with him in red leather pants. He was so iconic. And we only know that now with history. Because at the time, I remember people making fun of them. And now I long for them. I want to see them on TV again.
Bring them back. I want to bring back a lot of people from that era because they didn't get their due. It was a little too early, like you
I
said. There
know.
wasn't. So like we need a resurgence.
I just want to end this with a passage that I liked from your book, which is extremely cringe for me reading this in front of you. But just about the internet, you say in the first passage is radically upended how we've understood and interacted with our world. It has demolished traditional barriers and empowered millions who were previously marginalized. It has created vast new sectors of our economy while devastating legacy institutions. It is often dismissed by traditionalists as a vacant fad, when in fact it is the greatest and most disruptive change in modern capitalism. And if that is not the start of a damn good book, I don't know what is. So if you guys are not rushing over to Amazon, please let me know so I can even encourage you further. But Taylor, this was just such an amazing read. And I know my audience is going to love this, but so amazing to talk to you. This really means so much to me. And thank you for being on one of the first weeks for me over at Betches. What a great get for me. And I just hope this book is so successful.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm such a fan. So this was so fun. Thank
Well,
you.
please, once there's never going to be a time that you're not busy, but I hope I get to talk to you again and we can just talk reality, because your actual job is stressful as hell. You have to sometimes wake up wondering if Elon Musk or Tucker Carlson is picking on you. Like, that's insane. That's nightmare fuel.
It's crazy. It's all in good fun. I love the internet. I love the chaos, and I'll get you a review of something about her once it opens because it's not too far from me. So
Perfect.